From the moment I could walk and talk, I was Daddy's little helper, trailing around construction sites with a hard hat that swallowed my head. My father, John Armstrong, built his empire from scratch, Armstrong Constructions, and expected me to follow in his footsteps. Not that I minded, the world of blueprints and concrete was as much a part of me as my own skin. Working in Dad's company wasn't just a job, it was my entire life. Relationships? They never quite fit into my schedule. Besides, I had Lucy, my best friend since kindergarten. Lucy was the polar opposite of me, where I saw lines and angles, she saw Friday night dates and flirty dresses. "Anna, you need to get out more," Lucy would laugh, flipping her hair, which was always some shade of the rainbow. Not all men are as boring as concrete. I just shook my head, focused on my spreadsheets and client meetings, until Michael showed up. He transferred from the Atlanta branch as a manager. I remember the first day he walked into the office. He had this easy smile and a way of making everyone feel like they were the most important person in the room. "Anna Armstrong, I've heard a lot about you. All good things, I promise," he said, extending his hand. His grip was firm, confident. "Doubt that. If they told you I'm a pushover, they lied," I replied, raising an eyebrow. He laughed, a genuine, head-back sound. "I guess I'll have to find out for myself." It didn't take long for his charm to work on me. Coffee breaks turned into dinner dates. Dinner dates turned into late nights talking about everything and nothing. Michael wasn't like the guys Lucy dated. He was persistent but respectful, ambitious but grounded. It was refreshing. Terrifying, too, how fast I fell for him. The night he proposed, it was just us, a picnic in the park under the stars. No grand gestures, just an honest confession of love. "Anna, I'm not a man of many words when it comes to feelings, but I know this, I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me?" "Yes," I said without a second thought. The decision was as solid and straightforward as the foundation of a skyscraper. The morning of my wedding felt like any other day, except for the knot in my stomach and the bouquet of white roses shaking in my hands. "Can't believe I'm doing this," I muttered to myself, staring at my reflection. The girl in the mirror looked like a bride, all dressed in white, but her eyes were wide, like she was about to step off a cliff. "Hey, you look like you're going to a funeral, not your own wedding," Lucy teased, bustling into the room with a bag of makeup and a grin. "Let's add some color to those cheeks." I rolled my eyes, but let her dab my face with powder and paint. "Don't make me look like a clown, okay? It's just Michael out there, not the royal family." Lucy laughed, her hands expertly moving brushes and liners. "Trust me, by the time I'm done with you, Michael's going to fall in love all over again." The ceremony was a blur. Dad walked me down the aisle, his arm a steady weight on mine. "You sure about this, kiddo?" he whispered when we were halfway down. I squeezed his arm. "Yeah, Dad. I'm sure." Michael was waiting at the altar, his smile wide and sure. It anchored me, made my steps lighter. The vows were simple, words I'd heard 100 times in movies and at friends' weddings, but they felt different coming from my lips, promising forever to the man in front of me. Sarah, Michael's sister, came with her 2 little ones, thanking me for making her brother the happiest man alive. "I don't know how you did it, taming my wild brother," she joked as we watched Michael dancing with some of our nieces and nephews. "Just had to use the right bait," I quipped, watching him with a mixture of adoration and amusement. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of thank you cards and unwrapping gifts. But the biggest change was Michael's idea that I should quit my job and focus on us, on our home. It sounded so old-fashioned, and nothing like the life I'd envisioned for myself. "You really think I should quit?" I asked one evening, the brochures for new kitchen counters spread on the table between us. "Yeah, babe. Look, you've been at your dad's beck and call since you were a kid. It's time for us now," he said, his hand covering mine. I chewed my lip, looking down at our entwined fingers. "And if I hate it? If I'm a terrible housewife?" He chuckled, squeezing my hand. "Then you go back to work, and we hire a maid." But I've got a feeling you're gonna be great at this. So, I gave my notice at the company. Dad was surprised, but supportive. The last day at the office was bittersweet. I packed up my desk, my heart heavy but hopeful. Maybe Michael was right. Maybe it was time for a new chapter. That night, as I tried a new recipe for dinner, burning the garlic and undercooking the pasta, Michael wrapped his arms around me from behind. "Smells good," he lied, kissing my cheek. I leaned back into him, the familiar fear of change nagging at me. But there was also excitement, a thrill of stepping into the unknown. "We'll see," I said, hoping my new role as a housewife would feel as right as my old one had. 3 years into our marriage, and life had found a rhythm, sort of like the ticking of the clock in our kitchen, steady, predictable, but sometimes a bit too silent. Michael had scored a big promotion at the company, thanks to Dad. The pay was good, really good. We should have been on top of the world, dreaming up nursery colors and picking out baby names. But the baby part, well, it just wasn't happening. I had seen doctors, had tests done, and everything came back normal. "Just give it time," the doctor told me, flashing a smile that was probably meant to be comforting. So, I waited, filling my days with projects around the house, turning our home into something out of a magazine. During this time, Lucy dropped a bomb. She was pregnant. The news hit me hard, though I masked my shock with a smile. "That's amazing, Luce. Who's the dad?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. She shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. "Oh, you don't know him. Just someone I met." She quickly changed the subject. A few months later, she had a baby boy. I got her a nice gift, something chic yet practical, a designer baby bag. "You're a lifesaver, Anna," she said, hugging me with one arm while cradling her son in the other. Meanwhile, Michael started spending more weekends at his sister Sarah's place. He said she needed help with the kids since she was doing it all alone. "I just want to make sure they're okay," he explained one Friday as he packed a small overnight bag. "Maybe I could come with you? Help out a bit?" I suggested. Sarah was family, after all, and I liked playing aunt. No, he brushed off my offer with a quick wave of his hand. "It's a lot of chaos with the kids. I don't want to drag you into it. I'll manage." So, I started buying little gifts for the kids, books, games, things to keep them busy. "Send these along with you," I'd say, handing over the toys. Michael would smile, thank me, and head off. But the doubts began creeping in. Little things at first. The way he'd avoid my gaze when talking about his weekends. The rushed phone calls he'd end the moment I walked into the room. One day, I decided to talk to him about it. I waited for him in the living room, rehearsing what I would say. When he walked in, looking tired, my heart softened a bit, but I pressed on. "Michael, are you sure everything's okay with Sarah and the kids? Maybe I could help her out during the week. I have free time, you know." I pushed, watching his reaction closely. He hesitated, then shook his head. "No, I told you, it's under control. You don't need to worry about it." Something in his tone didn't sit right with me. It felt like he was hiding something. But I didn't want to push him further right then. I spent that Saturday like any other, deep cleaning the house, while Michael was helping Sarah with the kids. I vacuumed, dusted, and scrubbed. By mid-afternoon, my energy waned, and I decided a change of scenery might do me good. A quick trip to the mall for new curtains seemed like the perfect excuse to get out. As I turned the corner near the food court, I froze. There was Sarah, holding her children's hands. They were laughing, a carefree moment that felt so alien to my current state. "Sarah," I called out, my voice a little too eager. She looked up, a bit startled, then smiled. "Anna, what a surprise. How are you?" "I'm good, just grabbing some things for the house." "And Michael, is he here? Helping you out today?" I probed, trying to sound casual. Sarah's face shifted slightly, a flicker of confusion passing over her features. "Michael? No, he hasn't been here today." Was he supposed to be? My heart sank, but I masked it with a quick laugh. Oh, I must have misunderstood. I thought he was spending the day with you and the kids. No, the last time Michael came over was, well, it's been a few weeks, actually. We've just been texting, mostly. Is everything okay? Sarah asked, now looking concerned. Yeah, everything's fine. Just mix-ups, you know? I replied, my mind racing. Well, I better keep shopping. Those curtains won't pick themselves. Sure, let me know if you want to grab a coffee or something, Sarah said, as we parted ways. I nodded, but as soon as she was out of sight, my legs carried me quickly away, my heart pounding in my chest. Michael had lied. He wasn't with Sarah, he hadn't been for weeks. The realization hit me like a slap in the face. Where was he, then? And why lie about it? The house was quiet when I got back, too quiet, echoing with the loud doubts now filling my head. I threw my keys on the table and sank into a chair. My hands trembled slightly as I took out my phone. I needed answers, and there was only one way to get them. I dialed Michael's number, my fingers numb and cold. He picked up after the second ring. Hey babe, he answered, his voice cheerful. What's up? I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. Where are you? I'm at Sarah's, helping her out. You know, the usual chaos, he replied, a hint of strain now audible behind his casual tone. In the background, I could hear the unmistakable sound of children laughing. My grip on the phone tightened. Sounds like you're having fun, I said, trying to sound nonchalant. Yeah, Sarah had to run some errands. Left me in charge of the fort, he chuckled, and more laughter echoed behind him. The lie was so blatant, so effortless. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. Sarah wasn't running errands, I had just seen her, relaxed and shopping, not a care in the world. Okay, take care then, I said quietly, my throat tight. Love you, he said quickly, and before I could respond, he had hung up. I sat there alone, the silence of the house suffocating me, tears rolling down my cheeks. The man I loved, the man I had devoted my life to, was deceiving me. It hurt, more than I could have imagined. In the end, I wiped away my tears and headed to his home office. He'd always been private about his work, but now, every secretive moment felt suspicious. Stepping into his office felt like crossing into forbidden territory. Papers were stacked neatly on his desk, books lined the shelves in an orderly fashion, everything as it should be, except my heart pounding loud in my chest. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Proof? A confession scribbled on a post-it note? I sifted through papers, opened drawers, my hands shaking slightly. Then I saw it, tucked into a book on the shelf, a photograph that knocked the air from my lungs. It was Michael, Lucy, and her little boy, all smiling at a picnic. Michael had his arm around Lucy, and they looked happy. Too happy. The kind of happy that you are when you're more than just friends. A cold wave of realization washed over me. The lies, the absences, it all made a sick sort of sense now. But I needed more than a photo and my suspicions. I needed something concrete before I could confront him. First thing Monday, I called a detective agency, explained my situation, and hired someone. I just need to know for sure, I told the investigator. His assurance was professional, but my heart still felt like it was trapped in a vice. Michael returned Sunday evening, acting like everything was normal. Hey, babe, Sarah really appreciated the help. You're an angel for sending those gifts, he said, pecking me on the cheek. I forced a smile, kept the dinner conversation light, hiding the turmoil inside. Glad to help, I replied, my voice steady, despite the scream inside my head. I even talked to Lucy on the phone that week. She was her usual bubbly self, chatting about her son, making plans for coffee. It was surreal, hearing her voice, knowing she might be the reason my marriage was falling apart. That Friday, as Michael packed for another weekend at his sister's, his alleged sister's, I handed him a bag of gifts for the kids. Say hi to Sarah and the kids for me, I said, a brittle smile on my face. After he left, the detective called. We need to meet, he said, his voice grave. I have something you should see. We met at a park, a neutral space filled with the laughter of children and the barks of dogs, a stark contrast to the dark cloud hanging over me. He handed me an envelope. Inside were photographs and a report, dates, times, places. Michael and Lucy, together, not just friendly but intimate. My hands trembled as I flipped through the evidence, each image a stab in the heart. I'm sorry, Mrs. Thompson, the detective said. His face was a mask of professionalism, but his eyes were kind. If there's anything else we can do. I shook my head, folding the envelope closed. No, it's more than enough. The first thing I did was pack all of Michael's belongings. Every shirt, every pair of shoes, every scrap of him that lingered in our shared spaces, I boxed up methodically. It was mechanical, each fold away my pain. Once everything was packed, I didn't just leave it by the door or throw it out, I sent it all to Lucy's place. Let her deal with the mess she helped create. I called the courier, my voice calm, my instructions clear. Next, I changed the locks. No more would Michael walk freely through these doors as if he hadn't torn our life apart. This symbolic gesture felt like sealing off my heart from further damage. With the house now feeling less like ours and more like my own, I drove to my parents' house. My parents were shocked as I told them everything, the affair, the lies, the duplicity. Dad, usually so calm and composed, grew visibly angry. You need to divorce him, Anna. No second chances, he said sternly, his disappointment in Michael palpable. I nodded, the resolve settling in. I had already filled out the divorce papers, each line a nail in the coffin of my marriage. As evening fell, my phone started buzzing. Calls from Michael, texts, voicemails. I ignored them all. Lucy also tried to reach out, her messages a mix of confusion and panic. I silenced my phone, unwilling to hear their excuses or lies. Late in the evening, a car pulled up. I watched from the window as Michael stepped out. He walked up to the front door and rang the bell. When I opened the door, Michael's face was a mix of confusion and anger. Anna, why did you send all my stuff to Lucy? What's going on? His feigned ignorance fueled my anger. I smiled, cold and hard. And how do you know your stuff is with Lucy? Weren't you supposed to be at your sister's? The color drained from his face as he realized the trap he'd walked into. My father stepped forward, his presence formidable. I trusted you, Dad said, his voice thunderous. I was going to make you my successor, and you repay me by cheating on my daughter? Michael stumbled backward slightly, as if the words were physical blows. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. It meant nothing, I swear. I scoffed. It meant nothing? You destroyed our marriage for something that meant nothing? I didn't mean for any of this to happen, Michael pleaded, falling to his knees. Please, Anna, I can fix this. I stepped forward, the divorce papers in hand. Here, I said, thrusting the papers toward him. I want you gone. From my life, from my house, and from my father's company. Michael took the papers, his hands shaking. He looked up at me, eyes brimming with tears, but I felt nothing but revulsion. Dad turned to him, his final words cutting through the tense air. You're fired. And expect a call from my lawyer. We'll be seeking every penny back for what you've done. Michael, defeated and broken, slowly got to his feet and walked away, his future as shattered as the life he left behind. I watched him go, feeling a mix of relief and pain. The chapter of my life involving Michael was closed. A few days after the confrontation, my phone rang. The number was familiar, too familiar. It was Lucy. I hesitated but answered, steeling myself for the conversation. Anna, why did I get a request for financial compensation in the mail? Lucy's voice was tense, a mix of confusion and anger. I'm suing you for the damage you caused by having an affair with my husband. I said, my voice calm but firm. Anna, come on, you have to understand, I never meant to hurt you, she started, her voice shaky. I don't need your excuses, Lucy. You knew exactly what you were doing, I interrupted, not willing to hear her justify her actions. Lucy's tone shifted, the desperation clear in her voice. You have everything, Anna. I've always been in your shadow, struggling, while everything was handed to you. Can't you feel sorry for me, just this once? I can't, Lucy. Not for this. You crossed a line, I replied, my resolve hardening. She let out a bitter laugh. I always envied you, Anna. Your perfect life, your perfect job. I thought maybe for once I could have something that made me feel worth something too. That didn't give you the right to destroy my marriage, I said coldly, feeling the old pain mixed with fresh anger. Later that week, my lawyer called to discuss Michael's latest move. He's asking for mediation to settle the divorce terms, Anna. It would avoid a trial, keep things less public, he explained. After a moment of thought, I agreed. The day of the mediation, I walked into the lawyer's office, every step firm, my heart guarded behind a wall of icy determination. Michael was already there, looking worn and remorseful. I didn't buy it for a second. As we sat down, Michael's lawyer laid out their terms. It was almost laughable, how little he thought he could get away with giving up. No, I said simply, meeting Michael's gaze for the first time that day. He'll also pay for the damage caused. And he will renounce any claims to my father's company and my properties. After hours of negotiation, pushed by his lawyer, Michael agreed. He would compensate me financially for the betrayal and cover the legal demands against Lucy. He also formally renounced all claims to any part of my family's assets. As the final papers were signed, a weight lifted off my shoulders. The money wasn't a salve for the betrayal, but it was accountability, something Michael had to recognize and feel. I hope you find what you're looking for, Michael, I said as we parted, not sure if I meant it. I'm sorry, Anna. Truly, he replied, his voice low. It's been a few months since the dust settled on my divorce. I heard through the grapevine that Michael remarried quickly, Lucy, of all people. But that union crumbled faster than it formed when he found out her son wasn't his. Turns out, Lucy was already pregnant when she decided to weave her web around Michael. Now, she's struggling, raising the kid on her own, scrambling to make ends meet. As for Michael, his career never recovered. He bounces around, picking up whatever work he can find. Last I heard, he was doing some low-end jobs, nothing that would ever match up to the life we had planned together. As for me, I threw myself into my work. One crisp morning, I was early at the office, the first to arrive as usual. That's when my dad came in, his steps echoing in the empty hallway. Morning, Anna, he greeted, his voice breaking through my concentration. Morning, Dad, I replied, minimizing the spreadsheets on my screen. What brings you in so early? He walked over to my desk, a serious look on his face that told me he meant business. I've been thinking, he started, leaning against the edge of my desk. It's about time we talk about expanding the business. I think you're ready to take on more responsibility. I paused, absorbing his words. Are you sure? It's a big step. I've never been more sure of anything, Anna. You've got a sharp mind for business. It's time you use it to steer this company into new waters, he said confidently. I nodded, the weight of his trust in me settling on my shoulders. I'll do my best, Dad. You know I will. I know. That's why I'm suggesting it, he replied with a smile, then turned to leave before pausing at the door. Oh, and there's a community charity event next week. I want you to head it. Show them what the Armstrongs are made of. The days that followed were a blur of activity. Planning the charity event took up most of my time, but it was a welcome distraction. It gave me a sense of purpose, a direction to channel all my energy, something that had nothing to do with my failed marriage. The night of the event, as I stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd of familiar faces, I felt a surge of pride. I had organized this, brought these people together for a good cause. It was my hard work that made this happen, not anyone else's. After the speeches, as people mingled and congratulated me on a successful event, I realized I was starting to feel like myself again. The betrayal, the divorce, it was all part of my past now. Yes, it shaped me, but it didn't define me.